Good morning, everyone. It's Miss Keel here again. How are you? So we have finally reached the third part of our CRQ, where we will either be asking you to identify and explain a cause and effect relationship between the first two documents, or to identify a turning point between the two documents, or lastly, to identify a similarity or difference between those first two documents. So today we're going to start with cause and effect. It's really important that you understand what cause and effect is, okay? So I just showed you this video, or you can click on this video from The Office. Now, I watched The Office like 15 years ago when it was on TV. It was one of my favorite television shows, but I understand that it's making a resurgence, a comeback on Netflix, I'm assuming. So I'm hoping you're familiar with the show a little bit. Very funny show. But if you're not familiar with the show, you might think I'm a little bizarre because I showed you a clip of Michael Scott, which is Steve Carell, driving his car, distracted, talking to the camera, and as a result, he hits Meredith. Now, she's fine, okay? So that's the only reason why I showed you this clip, because it's kind of humorous. But I wanted to show you this clip to kind of just explain to you what cause and effect is, right, using this Office video. So the cause is Michael Scott driving the car, completely distracted, talking to the camera. Same thing as if someone were texting, right, and being distracted. And the effect is that he hits Meredith, right? That's cause and effect. So today we're going to take a look at how do I identify and explain cause and effect in history, right? So, and we're going to do this specifically with the CRQ, but you need to know this skill just in general. We're going to be looking at tons of historical events over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in high school, and you're going to have to be able to identify and explain what caused that historical event, what caused World War I, and then what were the effects of it, right? So it's a really important skill. So cause refers to something that contributes to the event, okay? What caused it? What brought that event about, okay? And the effect is what happens as a consequence or a result of this event. Tips while we're doing the CRQs for cause and effect, okay? The first thing I would do, so at this point, once you reach this question in the CRQ, you are at the point where you've seen those first two documents already. So what I would do if it were me is go back, read those, or look at those two documents again. And you want to first identify which document is the cause and which document is the effect, right? So that's the first thing you're going to want to do. And look for hints. Look at titles, dates, contextual hints to figure this out. Sometimes there's dates on a map, right? Or on a newspaper cover that could somewhat help you figure out which one's the cause and the effect. Sometimes. It doesn't always happen. The first document, this is so important. I assumed when the state released this new Regents exam, guys, that the first document would always be the cause. Well, we should never assume things, right? Because the first document does not necessarily have to be the cause, okay? So the second document can be the cause and the first document can be the effect. Find evidence from each document to support why you think it's the cause or why you think it's the effect, right? So we are going to practice, okay? And you have these documents in front of you, and I've used the current COVID crisis pandemic as our first example. So here we have, okay, and we're going to do the whole CRQ, the first, like the whole part of it. So here we have our first example, and our first document from this example is a map of the countries and territories with confirmed cases of COVID. And I know it doesn't say COVID on here because it got cut off, so I'm telling you, okay? So using document 1, what are the geographical circumstances surrounding the spread of the coronavirus? Let's review. What is this question asking us, right? We did this a few days ago, so you may have forgotten already. I hope not. What is this question asking? What does geographical circumstances mean? It means, why is it happening here? Now, if we look at this map, it's pretty much happening all around the world. So what led to the spread of the coronavirus? That's what it's asking. So you can say the geographical circumstances surrounding the spread of the coronavirus is that our world is interconnected, people have traveled, spreading the virus, any of those types of answers we would take, okay? So let's now go to our second document in this set, okay? Second document is a poster appears, okay? I'm going to refer to it as a public service announcement. A lot of times you see these in mass transit, on buses, you know, in the train, that's usually where you find a public service announcement, in high traffic areas where a lot of people can see it. So here we have a public service announcement. And remember, I always tell you to look, okay, for those contextual hints, those clues. So this is released by the CDC. And if you've never heard of the CDC, it's the Center for Disease Control. In the world. And they are a very extremely reliable source on, medicine, okay, on public health. So here we have them telling face coverings do's and don'ts, right? Make sure you can breathe through it, whenever going out in public, make sure it covers your nose and your mouth, wash after using, right? Do not use if you're under 2 years old, and use surgical masks or other PPE intended for healthcare workers. Don't use those like high quality masks, right? That, we need to save for our healthcare workers. So, question 2, identify the intended audience of this public service announcement. Who is the audience? What is this question asking you? Who is this public service announcement for? Who is the intended audience? The public. Even if you just said the intended audience of this public service announcement is the public, citizens of the world, people, humanity, that would be fine. So now let's move to the last question. This is our new skill, right? We're now taking these 2 documents and we have to identify the cause and effect here, okay? So the question is going to ask you, identify and explain a cause and effect relationship associated with the events or ideas in documents 1 and 2. So I put kind of like a skeleton response for the first couple so that it kind of helps you understand how you're going to write these. And I find this to be really helpful for students. So why don't you take a minute and try to do this? Okay, so now that you've hopefully tried to fill this in, the cause is blank and the effect is blank. That's the first thing I want you to do. Is the first sentence is identify the cause, identify the effect. But the question doesn't just ask you to identify, it also asks you to explain, right? So you have to identify and explain. So in this first sentence, you're identifying the cause and effect. In the second sentence, you're going to provide that evidence, that explanation. So I'm going to show you my answer on the second page. Hopefully it's similar to your answer, okay? The cause is the spread of the coronavirus, and the effect is the CDC issuing a public service announcement to wear masks. So essentially, the cause was the first document, the effect is the second document. Remember, that doesn't always have to be the case. So here is where I start providing my evidence. As seen in document 1, the coronavirus has spread throughout the world. There's my evidence. I'm using the map as my evidence, which led to the CDC urging people to wear masks covering their nose and mouths. See, I'm using a specific part of that second document as evidence, as seen in document 2. So now you're going to do a bunch of these with your teacher, okay, more practice for cause and effect. And then for homework, again, don't hate me, okay? But you're going to create your own CRQ homework, okay? And this one's a little more extensive because you are now going to do the whole thing, okay? So here I've shared with you your doc, and now you're going to insert 2 stimulus, okay? So you're going to insert something for document 1, something for document 2. Remember, maps, it can be writing, it can be maps, it can be pictures, photographs, and you're going to do a whole CRQ where you're going to identify either historical or geographic circumstances. You don't have to do both, just one. You're going to put a second document in and either do purpose, bias, point of view, audience, whatever you're most comfortable with. And then you're going to tell me the cause and effect relationship associated with your 2 documents. So let me show you an example of one so that it kind of helps you with this. So I did one again on my daughter. I tried to keep the theme similar so you understand that it can be personal. What you're doing can be personal. It does not have to be historical, and you can have fun with it. So here's my daughter Maeve again. And my first document is her holding up a picture of her homework, right? So her homework was, her teacher assigned her the letter Q, and she had to kind of model after the teacher a quail, right? Because there's not many things that start with Q. So she had to create a quail, right? She had to write the word quail there and the letter Q. So I used this picture, and the question I asked myself was, using this image, what were the historical circumstances that led to this photograph? So what led to Maeve doing this? The historical circumstances surrounding this photo is that Maeve's teacher assigned her homework for the letter Q. That's why she did her homework. Okay, my second document, and this should look familiar because I used it before, is a picture of her graduating from preschool. What is the purpose of this photograph? The purpose of this photograph is to show that Maeve graduated pre-K and received her diploma. Okay, now here's the new skill. Identify and explain a cause and effect relationship between these two documents. The cause is Maeve doing her schoolwork, as we saw in document 1, and the effect is Maeve graduating pre-K. Now I'm providing my evidence in the second part. In document 1, it shows Maeve completing her homework on the letter Q. As a result, okay, of Maeve doing all her schoolwork, she graduated from the pre-K as seen in document 2. So that's what you're going to do for your homework. Take care, guys.